Together, we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we all have caused wounds. What is a brave space? And what do we mean when we say we are creating brave space together? We all carry within us the potential for great harm and the potential for great healing. And no matter how hard we try, we find ourselves doling out both intentionally and unintentionally. All we can do is own our impact and our intent. I think this is what Brave Space is about. It is about showing up, knowing that the space we are creating is always full of potential, and that potential is undefined and undetermined. Will this space heal me? Perhaps. Will this space harm me? Perhaps. The potential of Brave Space is always a promise and a threat. A promise of healing and a threat of harm. That is the reality of any space, but we name this reality in order to create brave space together. And cultivating brave space means showing up in the midst of that potential. Our intention in FOS is always to be a space of healing. Always. But the reality of being a community practicing Big Tent Christianity is that when we hold open and inclusive space, the sharp edges we all have show up with us and can potentially wound someone else. So regardless of intention, we own our impact in brave space. And that is hard. But it is, as the Brave Space Litany, what it means when we say we exist in the real world. And the real world is full of people who carry scars and cause wounds. One of our community members, Sam McGee, said, "We were hurt in community and we will find our healing in community." This saying has stuck with me since I first heard her speak those words. I think this axiom is an excellent outworking of what Brave Space is. Brave Space is a community that we create together by showing up with our wounds and sharp edges, knowing that within that space, within community, we can also help heal each other. That is the invitation of Brave Space. But brave space is hard to create in a world that is saturated with fear. And at almost every turn, our society, our religious spaces, our educational spaces, our family, our media, and whatever other space you can think of is oriented towards cultivating fear because fear sells. Scared people want a safe space, even if it's illusionary. Accepting the invitation to show up, hope for, and imagine and create a brave space together takes courage. Richard Rohr says it this way: "Scared people remember threats and do not hear invitations." I would add that scared people cannot see the promise of community, only the threat of community. And it is funny that in the midst of fear, we often find ourselves creating communities that center on what we are against, center on what we fear, center on what we are afraid of, instead of what could be and a shared humanity. So when we talk about building community, we have to proactively choose what type of community we are building together. A safe space where all the things we are afraid of seem to be like out there and away from us. Suburbs of white flight were built on this response. Or are we building brave space where we own our intentions and our impact and show up in the potential of latent community, or I should say, the latent potential in community. We can commiserate about a problem, or we could collaborate on constructing a solution. Completely different responses that often require the same amount of energy to enact. This is not to say that we do not show up as empathetic beings who need mutual care and support when we share our problems and our pain. It also doesn't mean that we become helpful Harrys who only want to offer solutions instead of caring for people when they share their problems and pain with us. It means that we do not show up and build community around problems and our problems and pain. Instead, we come together in our common need and collaborate on constructing a community oriented towards healing. In other words, Brave Space is cultivating a community that is oriented towards healing, and by extension, a community committed to hope over fear. Hope prevents us from clinging to what we have and frees us to move away from the safe place and enter unknown and fearful territory. This is one of my favorite Henry Nouwen quotes. Activist and author Sister Soldier said this during an interview on The Breakfast Club, and I'm paraphrasing most of this from memory. Some of the people who keep using the word toxic are the most toxic. Counsel me. Don't cancel me. Choose to teach me instead of rejecting me. I don't know what I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. Brave Space is a commitment to counseling each other instead of canceling each other. I've seen this play out at FOS. When we show up with an openness to learn, we will grow and evolve as human beings. Our ability to grow is directly connected to our being allowed to grow. This doesn't mean that we will tolerate abuse within this community. We won't. But we also are not here to reject you. You may be corrected within the community, but not rejected. And the hard thing is that many of us don't like correction. And when we are corrected, we buck against the community and then feel rejected. When the reality is that we are not being rejected, we are merely being corrected, which actually allows us to show up in less harmful ways. It allows us to grow. And on the flip side, just because we disagree with someone or someone says something that you disagree with, doesn't mean that it needs to be corrected. We seek to correct and address abuse, not difference. In our slow cooker reflection passage this past week, we read Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? I think this is just another way of talking about cultivating brave space. Justice, a love of kindness, and walking humbly with God are vital to holding brave space together here in this community. There is a story in the Gospel according to Luke in the New Testament about two wealthy men who make their way to the temple that helps us to see what this means. The first man was a religiously devout man, a ruler of the people. The second man was a tax collector for the Roman Empire, which means that he was a collaborator in the oppression of his people. Both men went to the temple to pray. The first man prayed this: God, thank you that I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector over there. I fast twice a week and I give 1/10 of all that I get. The second man, a tax collector, could not even bring himself to be where the rest of the people were praying. and he could not even lift his gaze upwards to heaven. He began to beat his chest in a sorrowful rhythm as he prayed, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. After Jesus told the people this story, he said, I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Right after Jesus tells this story to a group of people who are described in the text as some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, Jesus is approached by a man described as a rich young ruler in the Bible. This man asks Jesus, what should I do to inherit eternal life? To which Jesus eventually responds, you still lack one thing. Sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me. Jesus invites the rich young ruler to let go of everything that would hinder him from following him and being part of Jesus's community. The rich young ruler looked at Jesus with a deep sadness in his eyes because he knew he loved his wealth more than he wanted to follow Jesus. In the same journey, Jesus passes by a man named Zacchaeus' house. Zacchaeus was a notorious tax collector, hated by the people in the community. Zacchaeus heard that Jesus was coming his way, and being too short to see over the crowds, scampered up a nearby sycamore tree to see Jesus. And Jesus saw him perched in the tree and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. And Zacchaeus hurried out of the tree and gladly welcomed Jesus to his home. And without provocation, Zacchaeus announces to Jesus and to everyone else that was present, look, Lord, here and now I give half of all my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. To which Jesus responded for all to hear, today salvation has come to this house because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. The religiously devout young ruler and the tax collector were invited by Jesus, but only one accepted the invitation. Brave Space is an invitation to move out of our comfort zones, out of the safe spaces, into the fearful and unknown territories, into the possibility of community. But fear threatens to conceal that invitation. And we know that community always carries within it the inherent potential for healing and the inherent potential for harm, a promise and a threat. Still, we choose to build with the intention of healing and hope in the promise that this community will be a place of healing for us all. Because together we will create brave space. Because there is no such thing as a safe space.